Next up, we have Connor Polen. He's from Morristown, New Jersey, and while attending Newark Academy, the junior is currently ranked in the national top 20 for the 800 and 1,000-meter races. Besides breaking school records, Connor is equally ranked in engineering and robotics, being placed in the top 30 at VEX World Championships. Using this background, his talk will cover a secret hack that top athletes and students use to achieve their successes.
By show of hands, who here likes riddles? Okay, looks like we have some puzzle people in the crowd. So try to get this one. What am I? With me, your brain will grow. Without me, it'll shrink. I take minutes, but save you hours, and I need consistency, but build your resilience. Any guesses? You can just shout them out loud. Okay, that was fast, and that was also right. The answer is exercise. And the science behind it is something I've become fascinated by. And it all started last year when, like most high school sophomores, I started thinking about college and how I can get into a great one. As an added fact, I'm a competitive middle distance athlete, and I love to run. I want to run in college, I love to train, and I love to compete. So last year, to my parents' delight, I began using the internet for something productive. I began doing college research. And while scrolling through college web pages and postings by track coaches, I noticed a fact that I've never seen before. And they highlighted how their athletes have higher GPAs than the school average. And the colleges touting this included schools like MIT and Caltech, where the average GPA is already off the charts. So as a runner, I wanted to understand how. How do these athletes with less time due to training 6 to 7 days a week have the advantage? And over the next few months, I've narrowed it down to 2 possible reasons. Is it the behavioral aspects athletes have to compete at a college level, like focus, organization, and discipline, or is it some biological change that results from their training that they benefit from? In short, it's both. Let me break it down for you, starting with behavioral aspects. So to compete in college at a top level, you have to have gained skills like organization and time management in high school, because you've got to balance academics, training, and extracurriculars. And it is tiring. I've been in this exact same situation, not to mention ACT studying, homework, clubs, tests, and missed lunch. So the discipline athletes gain from having to balance all these activities fuels lifelong grit and internal motivation. And studies have actually correlated exercise with positive behavioral benefits, one that I want to focus on today being conscientiousness. And it's the personality trait of wanting to complete your goals to the best of your ability. And since athletes tend to be hyper-competitors, they have no problem building a routine around their exercise to complete these goals. For me, these goals are completed through hard workouts and practices and showing up each day, especially when I don't want to. And so whether or not these benefits fully explain the academic advantage athletes have can be debated, I'm sure we can all agree that they're game changers in how athletes study. What's less clear is why they have a biological advantage. And to answer this question, let's look back 3,000 years. This is a lime. And 3,000 years ago, our brains were actually larger. In fact, we've lost about a lime-sized chunk of brain volume over the past 3,000 years. And scientists hypothesize that this loss in brain volume has something to do with exercise. Because back in the day, we either ran, climbed, jumped, fought, got out of dangerous situations, or we died. And now, in 1975, about 42% of adults were engaged in deliberate exercise. Fast forward 50 years, and that number is almost in half, at 24%. And kids are in the same boat. Only 20% of adolescents meet the recommended daily amount of exercise. And that's because the average 6 to 11-year-old watches 28 hours a week of TV a week. And so these concerns aren't just what fuel the theory of anthropologists. Take a look at these MRI scans. As you can see, they compare someone who lives a sedentary life and someone who lives an active life and does cardiovascular exercise. As you can see in the active brain, it's actually fuller. It's larger because of more gray and white matter. Gray matter helping with thinking and memory skills, and white matter being the wiring that improves our learning and attention. And you see that big dark gap in the sedentary brain? Well, that's the lateral ventricle. And it's larger because it's filled with fluid, prohibiting optimal brain structures from forming and also increasing the risk of neurological diseases like Alzheimer's. So exercise will literally change the structure and size of your brain. But there's also major chemical aspects that change the brain and its effectiveness. Here's a different type of MRI, that measures and maps electrical signals from the brain. As you can see, exercise will get the gears turning and get you thinking. And the specific areas highlighted with color are associated with attentive thinking, logical reasoning, and memory. And although these effects happen during exercise, they luckily remain after. But to get them, you have to get your heart rate up. And that's why I keep mentioning cardiovascular exercise, because it's the easiest and most effective way of getting your heart rate up. In fact, there have been studies that correlate a higher VO2 max to better information processing and interpreting. In this study, it specifically compares it to brain volume. And so it's no surprise that college athletes in the most cardiovascularly demanding sports have the advantage. Sports like tennis, biking, swimming, and cross country. And to put this in perspective, let's look at a 10-week exercise intervention program among students. Over these 10 weeks, they exercise 10 to 25 minutes just twice a week. And you can see that their academic averages went up in 8.95 points. That's the difference between a B and an A. But instead of just talking about these benefits, how about we get some of our own? So I'd like everyone to stand up, and we're going to do a quick exercise called fast feet for 12 seconds. So remember, while we do this exercise, the faster, depending on how comfortable you are, you can have your hands out in front of you, you can swing them, or you can have them out to the side like this goofy guy. So remember, the faster you move your feet, the higher your heart rate, and the smarter you'll become over your friends. 12 seconds, starting in 3, 2, 1, 12, 11, 10, 9, as fast as you can, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, relax. You guys can sit down and thank you. While you guys settle down, first of all, great job, that was amazing. But what happened in those first few seconds is that you actually surprised your body and woke your brain up. Now keep that up for 10 minutes, and what would happen is that you have heightened oxygen and nutrient delivery to your brain, increasing neurogenesis, or the growth of new neurons. Now about 30 minutes in, chemicals like endocannabinoids and endorphins are released, which is your body's natural stress reliever. Endocannabinoids help with mood, learning, and memory. Now about an hour after exercise, BDNF proteins are released, which are basically fertilizers for new neurons. So instead of information going in through one ear and out the other, exercise can help you formulate and retain your thoughts. Now about 2 to 4 hours after exercise, a second wave of brain chemicals hits. Norepinephrine and dopamine, improving your focus and your mood. Now, about 1 month after exercise, you'll notice that behaviors like grit, discipline, and time management become a staple in your life as you're used to the routine. And fast forward 2 to 3 years, you'll actually have higher gray and white matter. Instead of comparing who's higher GPAs, you can now compare your brain volume. And so I think this answers our initial question of how athletes with less time have the academic advantage. It's a combination of behavioral and biological benefits. And I'm sure you're all thinking, I definitely don't want to train 2 to 3 hours a day, like a college athlete, but I also don't want my brain to shrink. So how do I get these benefits? And luckily, science shows that 20 minutes is enough, and even better at 40 minutes. And make these fun. You can go play Frisbee, play with your dog, even park your car extra far from the grocery store and try to run them back in one go. A few air squats and laps around the house works. Just deliberately stay active. And for those of you like me who love deals, think about it as a buy one, get one free. You get A's and you get abs. It is a no-brainer because exercise doesn't just sculpt the physique. It rewires the brain, changing how we feel, think, and solve problems. I honestly can't think of a better investment of my time, and I hope after today you can't either. Thank you.